Welcome back, Love Nation. This is part three of the Diddy and Mr. Jones lawsuit. Like, share, subscribe. We're going to get into this. This is going to be a lengthy video. All right, let's go. Booby trap on the river. As part of Mr. Jones' worker recruitment tools, Diddy provided Mr. Jones with an exclusive bad boy baseball cap and required him to wear it to booby trap on the river as a signal to any worker he approached that Diddy was in town and had sent Mr. Jones to recruit them. Mr. Jones had no desire to visit booby trap on the river. Mr. Jones had no desire to solicit the workers from booby trap on the river. Diddy used his power and influence to intimidate and force Mr. Jones into soliciting workers from booby trap on the river. As detailed below, Mr. Combs used many tactics to maintain dominion and control of Mr. Jones. Apparently, these workers were accustomed to servicing Diddy and would know that he is in town by the sight of the bad boy baseball cap. The followings are Instagram profiles of two of the workers that Diddy required Mr. Jones to solicit and have relations with at his home in Miami, Florida. Mr. Jones had no desire to solicit or to be with these people. In the previous paragraph, Mr. Combs used his power and influence to intimidate and force Mr. Jones into soliciting these women. The following is the phone number of another worker that Diddy required Mr. Jones to solicit and perform acts with at his home in Miami. The phone number is blanked out. Mr. Jones had no desire to solicit and or have relations with these individuals in the previous paragraphs. Mr. Combs used his power and influence to intimidate and force Mr. Jones into soliciting these individuals. Mr. Combs used many tactics to maintain dominion and control of Mr. Jones. He promised him a Grammy for Producer of the Year for the Love album. He also offered him $250,000 to purchase all the instruments he wanted. He promised him ownership of his $20 million property, One Star Island in Miami, Florida. He promised access to record label executives like defendants Lucian Charles Grange and Ethiopia H. Mr. Combs would often switch up his approach. He would go from promising Mr. Jones the world to threatening Mr. Jones with harm. Diddy threatened to eat Mr. Jones' face and informed Mr. Jones that he is willing to delete his mother, Janice Combs, if he must in order to get what he wants, so he wouldn't think twice to harm Mr. Jones. Next chapter, Mr. Combs and Justin Combs solicits pharmaceuticals and engage with workers and people under 18. On or about July 2nd of 2023 in California, Mr. Combs had a listening party at his home. Present at this home was an R&B artist, redacted, number 9. Keep that in mind. Artist number 9 is redacted. J. Combs, workers, and some ladies under age. The event began around 7 p.m. Mr. Combs requested a female worker and required Mr. Jones to solicit them. An hour later, several women appeared. In addition to these workers, there were at least 5 women in the crowd that were under 16. Diddy forced all the women to drink Lace de Leon liquor. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs laced the liquor with pharmaceutical. Mr. Combs did not check the ID of any of these underage girls. The presence of these underage women made Mr. Jones very uncomfortable. He attempted to leave, and Diddy forced him to stay. Diddy went so far as to take Mr. Jones' car keys to prevent him from leaving. After being forced to drink Lace de Leon shots, Mr. Jones began feeling lightheaded and recalls passing out and waking up at 4 a.m. the following morning with no clothes on, with a worker sleeping next to him. Screenshots of the video, footnote 10, from that night is embedded below. 9. Footnote 9, he is a Grammy Award winning singer who had trouble with law enforcement after pawpawing a Bajan millionaire. It's definitely referring to Chris Brown. We spoke about these things in a previous video, so please go back and watch. And 10, footnote, is saying that this writer is in possession of the video and will provide a copy to the courtroom. So there's definitely a lot of evidence here. Here are the screenshots. Next chapter. Mr. Combs attempts to pass off Mr. Jones to Cuba Gooding Jr. Mr. Jones believed that Mr. Combs, Diddy, was grooming him to pass him off to his friends. This fear became reality when Diddy introduced Mr. Jones to Cuba Gooding Jr. while they were on Diddy's yacht. During the introduction, Mr. Combs suggested that Cuba get to know Mr. Jones better. He then left them alone in a makeshift studio on the yacht. As evident by the video, of which screenshots were embedded below, Cuba Gooding Jr. began touching Mr. Jones' leg, his upper inner thigh, near his man part, the small of his back, and other places. Mr. Jones was extremely uncomfortable and proceeded to lean away from Cuba Gooding Jr. He rejected his advances, and Mr. Gooding Jr. did not stop until Mr. Jones forcibly pushed him away. Again, the following screenshot is included. And again, a footnote at the bottom is saying that the writer of this is in possession of the video and will provide a copy to the court. Next chapter, the Love Album. Throughout his time with Mr. Combs, Mr. Jones was under an implied work-for-hire agreement. He was not compensated for his time living with Diddy or for the songs he produced. As evidence, he was listed as a producer for the following songs on the Love album's final release. The following songs are titled Deliver Me, Stay Part 1, Reaching, What's Love, Stay a While, Moments, Need Somebody, Homecoming, and Tough Love. Diddy and defendants LR, MR, UMG all benefited from Mr. Jones' work product. They failed to compensate Mr. Jones for his work. As a result, Mr. Combs and defendant LR, MR, UMG were all unjustly enriched at the expense of Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones attempted to work with Diddy to secure his publishing and royalty rights for the work he completed on the Love album. Diddy only offered Mr. Jones $29,000 for 13 months, thousands of hours of work, and 9 songs that made it to the Love album. Ironically, Mr. Jones was willing to take $50,000, his publishing and royalties. Diddy's self-serving greed would not allow him to pay Mr. Jones an additional $21,000. And footnote 12 at the bottom of this page is saying that Cuba Gooding Jr. has a storied history of SAing and forcibly touching people against their will. Footnote 13, this writer has retained other creatives, artists, and writers who have experienced the same treatment from Diddy and will file suit in the coming weeks. So there's definitely another lawsuit coming, you guys. And again, this is speaking from other creators and artists and writers against Diddy, so this is definitely not the end of it. Diddy's deceptive business practices became so bad that Mr. Jones was left with no choice other than to make a public plea on social media for Mr. Combs to pay him for his work. After publicly requesting that Diddy do the right thing and pay him fairly, Mr. Jones received an onslaught of messages, bad messages, from Stevie J and Love Records, A&R DeForest Taylor. Footnote 14. There, here are some screenshots from DeForest. Right here, again, they're calling him a liar. They're telling him to run, come talk to me in public, on a public podcast forum. You 100% weirdo. That's a screenshot. According to Mr. Jones, Diddy is very forceful and demanding. When Diddy does not take no for an answer and would often threaten to inflict harm on Mr. Jones if Mr. Jones did not comply with his demands. As detailed above, Mr. Combs threatened to eat Mr. Jones's face. Again, footnote 14. As the A&R of Love Records, DeForest Taylor did not require Mr. Jones or any of the other creative musicians or artists to sign an NDA. On another occasion, while standing in Mr. Combs' bathroom, Mr. Jones was forced to watch as Diddy displayed pow-pows and bragged about getting away with pow-powing people. Mr. Combs shared that he was responsible for the pow-powing for the nightclub incident in New York City with rapper Shine. Again, this is a screenshot of it, and the woman did come forward about this. He shared that artist and Mr. Combs' girlfriend at the time, Jennifer Lopez, aka J-Lo, carried the pow pow into the club for him and passed his pow pow after he got into an altercation with another individual. And again, here is a picture, a screenshot of Jennifer Lopez and Diddy, and this is an infamous incident. You guys remember that J-Lo and Diddy were arrested that evening. The pow-powing incident at the Chalice Recording Studios confirms Mr. Combs' statement. These statements reinforce Mr. Jones' fear of Mr. Combs and strengthened Mr. Combs' dominion and control of Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones was terrified of Mr. Combs. He felt like he could not tell him no. Mr. Combs consistently made it clear that he has immense power in the music industry and with law enforcement. Mr. Combs made it clear that his head of security, Fahim Muhammad, or better known as Mr. Muhammad, had the power to make people and problems disappear. And here is a picture of Fahim Muhammad. Mr. Combs instructed his staff to always contact Mr. Muhammad if they are ever pulled over by the police in Miami or California. Upon information and belief, Mr. Muhammad spoke with the LAPD after G was pow-powed at the studio. The LAPD was in CRS and witnessed what happened in the aftermath of the bathroom, and they went with the bogus claim that the incident of G's powing occurred outside of the studio. This was all thanks to Mr. Muhammad's connections with law enforcement. Mr. Jones had no reason to disbelieve Mr. Combs, as he had seen firsthand through the pow-powing of G and the subsequent silence of the LAPD and the media that Diddy indeed had the power to put hands on him or harm him. The LAPD spent hours in CRS after the pow-powing of G, yet there were no arrests. Mr. Jones witnessed the LAPD in the restroom, pictured above, and I showed you guys the picture, yet no arrests were made. The morning after the pow-powing, Mr. Jones and several others arrived at CRS, and G's blood was still on the floor of the restroom. Mr. Combs hired a cleaning crew to clean it up. You guys, we are actually going to stop there for part 3 of this video. I definitely want to know what you guys think about these situations and incidents that are now coming to full light concerning Diddy